Well, good morning to most of you and good afternoon to some of you. We have some people joining us from a long, faraway place that we seldom get to visit ourselves in Hong Kong. It's an absolute pleasure having all of you. I'm so appreciative of you giving up your time to be with us. I will make this a very energetic, poppy, energetic, engaged session between us. My name is Pavlo Phitidis. I'm one of the co-founders of Aurik. I'm an investor in businesses. I wrote a book or two and I do a bit of speaking. Today, it's all about you. It's all about why we are in a relationship together, where we're going, and how to get there faster and more efficiently. I'm going to talk to you about a system that will build a $50 million a year business. Or let's say in South African terms, for those of you in South Africa, a 300 million rands a year business in a period of 25 to 30 years. For those of you in the UK, just put a pound sign in front of the dollars. It's much of a muchness. It's only a 15–20% difference. To start off, I would love to do a 30-second meet and greet as a roundtable discussion between us. But we need to do a deal with each other.
Sorry, Pablo, I accidentally muted you. Apologies.
Oh my word, I've been muted by my colleague. Guys, you know, it happens very often. It happens very often, so I'm used to it. So a couple of things. It would be great if you switched your cameras on. We are all people. We are all sick and tired of looking at blank screens. We're all sick and tired, especially in using Microsoft Teams. For those of you who do a lot of work across corporate, looking at a blank screen with initials on it, never sure if someone is alive, there, present, engaged, or not. But so here's the deal. I'm going to go around the screen. 30 seconds, 30 seconds. It would be great if you could just introduce yourself, your name, your business, where you are, and what your business does. But in 30 seconds, it is essential that we do it in 30 seconds because I'm going to share a complete system to honestly, truly get you from where you are to the top end of where you could be in a shorter period of time. And it's vital that I get that communication and information across to you. So with that in mind, I'm going to use my screen as a guide. And Javid, welcome. You're right at the top of the screen. In 30 seconds, name, your company name, where you are, and what you do. And I'm so sorry, Javid, incidentally, that you're not based in Texas at the moment because you'll be busy than you could ever wish to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, everybody. I'm Javid Ibrahim. My company's called Ideal Response, and we're based in Kent in England, and we do disaster recovery. So we clean up after fires, floods, oil spills, chemical spills, and traumas.
A perfect 30-second pitch. Thank you, Javid. Mario. The trick is you have to unmute yourself before you introduce yourself.
Here we go. Good morning, guys. My name is Mario Ruiz. I'm the CEO of a company called Lightech, and we are a lighting and energy efficiency company based out in Cape Town.
Fantastic. Thank you. Jenny.
Hi, it's Jenny J. I'm the MD of Serena Trading. We're in Cape Town. We import industrial minerals and sell them locally. And there's a couple of my staff members on the group. You'll meet them in a minute.
Fantastic. Thank you. Natalie.
Hi, I'm Natalie. I am Jenny's assistant and I work for Serena Trading and we do industrial mineral trading.
Wonderful. Thank you. Aurik. Aurik's gone for now. Barent.
Hi, Barent and Debbie, and we are from Pie Shop. We are based in Henley on Klip in Gauteng. and we import the Raspberry Pi single board computer from the UK, import and distribute, mainly B2C and a bit of B2B as well, and all of the parts and accessories around the Raspberry Pi computer.
Fantastic. It's a great, great franchise to have. Well done on you. Paul.
Thank you.
I'm Carl Wessel. Company is Deluxe Coffee Works. We roast coffee and we pretty much are open to sell to anyone who consumes coffee.
Yeah, that would be everyone on the screen, I bet. Brenda.
Hi, I'm Brenda. I work for Serena Trading. I'm the KZN representative, and as you know, we deal with industrial minerals.
Fantastic. Costa.
Hi, morning guys. I'm Costa. I'm one of the three owners of Boss Fisheries in Malawi. We're a fish retail and wholesale and distribution business in Malawi. Nice to meet you all.
Very nice to have you. Thank you. Jason.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Jason O'Leary from CF Wealth Management, part of the St. James's Place Group. I'm based in Hong Kong. My business partner, Gareth, is also on the line, who's based in the UK, and we offer services to expatriates and local people for wealth management advice in Hong Kong, UK, and around the world.
Fantastic. Good afternoon and welcome. Christopher.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Christopher Zinn. I'm one of the co-founders of PiShop, along with Barnes and Debbie, who you spoke to earlier. We supply the single board computer, Raspberry Pi, and related accessories in South Africa, primarily to the consumer, the hobbyist, and the education sector.
Very nice. Thank you. Gareth.
Hi, I'm Gareth Llewellyn-Williams. I work with Jason at CF Wealth, yeah, we help primarily expatriates who have left the UK and are working in Hong Kong, and then helping them repatriate back to the UK with all their financial needs.
Excellent, thank you. John.
Hi, John Curry from JC Technologies. We're a managed service provider focusing on cloud services and support around business-to-business engagements, primarily based out of Johannesburg, but supporting customers across the globe. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you. Jonathan.
Sorry, I was sleeping. Yeah, we are Xerox Holdings. We're a construction company, more construction services company where we do services such as plastering, tiling, ceilings and partitions to the South African construction industry.
Excellent, thank you. Reza.
Hi, I'm Reza, one of the owners of Boss Fisheries in Malawi, and we specialize in distribution and retail of frozen goods in Malawi.
Fantastic, thank you. Teresa.
Good morning all. Teresa from Cape Town. The company's name is Arlan Construction. We manufacturers of concrete walling products and products to the civils companies.
Brilliant, thank you. Boris.
Morning, guys. My name is Boris. I'm part owner of Boss Fisheries as well, with Costa and Reza in partnership.
Excellent, thank you. Quentin. Quentin, unmute.
Morning, everyone. My name is Quentin. I'm representing Xerox Holdings based in Woodmead here in Joburg. We are a construction company dealing with corporate contractors doing finishing, plastering, tiling, and ceilings and partition and painting. I'm with Jonathan Ogle. Okay.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Rishen.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rishen, and I'm the financial manager for Boss Fisheries, where we specialize in the FMCG sector in Malawi.
Fantastic. And I think lastly, Enzo.
Hi, good morning, everyone. From a company called Northern Data. So we operate out of Cape Town. We do data management and analytics. So how you ingest data, secure, process, and then consume. And then we also do cloud migrations and then modern workplace solutions.
Fantastic. Guys, the screen moved around a little bit. Have I left anybody out? I don't think so. And on the screen with me, I've got Pippa Rolls, wave at the top there, and Kate Lax, who are all part of Aurik. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you. Thank you for giving up the time to let me address you. And I'm really looking forward to the next hour together. I want to start very quickly with our origin story. I was born to three entrepreneurs, a father and two uncles. And they're people who all went into business. They started businesses. They remained dedicated to their business. The one uncle worked until he was 88 years of age. The second uncle worked until he was 84 years of age. And my father would have had to have worked, I guess, to a similar age had it not been an intervention in the business. They worked to that age, not because they loved working to that age. They worked to that age because they had to work to that age. They were smart individuals. They had the benefit of education behind them. They were deeply committed. They worked in one business alone, so they developed deep relationships. All three of them played a part in working with lobby groups to improve policies within their particular sectors. And all of them built really good income-driven opportunities for themselves. But none of them could sell. None of them could sell. And all of them had thought and believed that the final payday would come with a good, clean, exciting exit. And for that reason, they invested back into their businesses year after year after year. It was a very frustrating thing being part of the family, witnessing that outcome. I personally started my career in business at the young age of 22, thinking I knew everything. Why? Because I went to university and I studied business. And we were told how to build businesses. Gosh, we had to read books after books after books and attend lectures and lectures and lectures and wrote exam after exam after exam. I started in engineering. I moved across into accounting. Really, I thought I had it wrapped. And the first business I bought for $1, I bought the equity of the business, which was the first mistake. And it had undisclosed debts of around $420,000 to two big banks. The individuals who sold it to me left within the week that I took over the business itself, and the staff that faced me had a combination of pity and dread in their eyes. 5 years later, fortunately, that business was very successfully sold. I then acquired another business for $1, but this time understanding that it had debt of around $380,000. Successfully turned that business around and almost burnt out. After a short career in corporate finance, I then got hauled into the family business. And my father was in a dire position. Being a lot older than me, the relationships we have with our fathers and the father-son relationship is very often one in which you go through a period of believing that your father's a superhero. You then think that you know everything and they know nothing. And then you emerge back into a place where you start to have a deepening respect and love for them. Stepping into that environment and having to face the reality that after 42, 43 years, my father's efforts had not yielded anything close to what I thought he had managed to build was traumatic in its own right. Very luckily, and after some extremely difficult periods, that business got successfully sold 3.5 years later. I burnt out. And I then spent 1.5 years in the United States consulting extensively on the West Coast to technology companies, starting up technology companies, investing, raising funding, developing growth strategies and turnaround strategies, what they refer to as a pivoting strategy. And during that period, I got access to an incredible amount of data. If any of you are familiar with the American environments, they have data for everything. Every sports match has data. Every athlete has data. The entire environment, uses data to create excitement and energy in almost every sector and every area of the socio-political economy. I got the IRS data, and for those of you who understand America, it's a country that creates a business on collecting taxes. And the only one who seems to have evaded that was the former president, who's now going to have his tax returns made public in the next 2 days or so. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Using the data that I got out of the US, I then learned a terrible statistic that 94.6% of businesses started failed to sell. And in the 18 months that I lived there, I worked with some of the hardest working, best educated, smartest, most committed individuals. And these are businesses not in their startup phase, but in the later stage of advancement. I then realized that actually the success in building a business has nothing to do with how smart you are, how hard you work, how well educated you may or may not be. Surely it wasn't luck, because we never had it in our family, and 94.6% of others equally never had it. I also secured an opportunity to be the external examiner for a leading Master of Business Administration university, a business school, where for 3 years I marked external papers. Well, as the external examiner, I marked company valuation papers and became very, very familiar with the different valuation methodologies and with the deepening insight on what levers can be pulled to take the effort of an entrepreneurial business owner into translating that into a business that of a day can be successfully sold. Because you see, we seldom ever start with the end in mind. So with that, we then established Aurik with a view to solve this problem. The process of building a business evidently is broken, and the method and the system behind it remains a mystery. That's what we set out to crack. 15 years ago, we started the business Aurik itself, and we had a terrible false start. The reason was, in the beginning stages, with language that was largely unfamiliar across business, we thought we would call it an incubator because we ourselves were unfamiliar with the language of growth support. And in the United States, I had worked in and out of a number of incubators. The very first deal we did was with the chicken farmer, 350 kilometers located away from our offices, who called in asking for chicken egg incubators. I thought it was a joke in the beginning, but all of you will remember the very early days of starting your business. You do not say no to anything that will generate cash flow. With that, we supplied the chicken egg incubators. I leveraged my engineering background. We built them, we studied them. The internet's a wonderful resource, and realized we had a problem. 94.6%. It's been burnt into the neural pathways in my brain. I myself ran that data. I then got the data checked and double checked and triple checked. It's a terrifying statistic. In Australia, the number is 97.2%. So this seemed like a problem worth solving. To get that done, over a 9-year period, my co-founder and I started, built, and sold 12 businesses across 6 sectors. We had 2 complete terrible failures. We had 2 listings on a stock exchange, 3 management buyouts, and 5 corporate sales. And what was most exciting about this is that after each intervention, the last handful of businesses to get to the same value as the first handful of businesses had taken more or less half the time and cost about 1/3 of the investment in its original form. And through that, we started to crack the code of business growth, which we've incorporated into a system that we now configure in service of clients like yourselves. We've worked with over 2,700 businesses, and so far to date, over a 24-month period, we've managed to achieve a consistent annual average compound growth rate as an average across all clients of 28.9%. So it's a 28.9% year-on-year growth over 2 years. It emerges into the early 60% mark in terms of revenue uplift. At the same time, over the entire 24-month period, we've managed to enjoy an average EBITDA growth rate of 32.4%. So 32.4% up from where we engage with you. Those are the stats across that portfolio. And the way we get it done is through the asset of value growth system. My job today is to talk to you about the asset of value growth system. It's the path that we are working and traveling together. And conceptually, from time to time, instead of getting wrapped up in too much of the activity, which is essential, it's always important to remember why we're doing what we're doing and to stand back for a minute so that we can see the many, many parts of work that we do with you will accumulate into a system that conceptually I will share with you today. It has 3 elements to it, and the 3 elements are crucial. We always start with a growth goal. Why do you do what you do? Why do you do what you do? Intention or purpose affects the way you think, and the way you think affects the way you behave. And the way you behave manifests what you have in front of you. A single purpose is absolutely essential, especially given the ructions that we experience in our socio-political and economic environments right around the world. A single strategy has been proven, or a single intent has been proven to largely unfold and manifest that intent. Despite what happens socially, despite what happens politically, despite what happens economically, if there's one destination that you sail to, it's crisp and it's clear, it makes you absolutely resolute. And the many, many, many small steps that you take to get there will eventually accumulate to get you there. There's a wonderful video, which I'd love to share with you after this, presented by Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's his story in 12 minutes, how he was a rural farm boy somewhere in Austria who had this idea he wanted to go to America and become rich and famous. He literally says it as such. And he speaks to what he did in order to manifest that reality. It all began with a single purpose. It's all he thought about, it's all he lived, it's all he breathed. From there, I'd like to share with you a business growth system, because if it's clear as to why we're doing what we're doing, and we have a structure on how to achieve it, it removes the guesswork. And guesswork in business is no different to spending time as opposed to investing time. It's no different to a piston in an engine leaking oil and leaking air, lessening the impact of that piston's activity. And finally, from there, I want to talk to you about a growth leadership system. A growth leadership system that we have seen take businesses up to $50 million of annual revenue in half the time it would normally take. So why? Why do we do what we do? Why do we do what we do? When I meet with most business owners, in the very first instances, many turn around and talk first to their passion. And passion is essential. You need to believe in what you do. You need to find meaning in what you do. You need to believe you have a talent, an orientation, an interest in what you do. Because passion helps you work into the future. It helps you handle the many, many rejections. It helps you celebrate the few successes that eventually accumulate to create a business. It's the fuel in the engine. But very, very few business owners define purpose in crisp, clear terms. And defining that purpose is vital. We fundamentally believe, philosophically, that every business should be built into an asset. And it should be built into an asset in order to avoid the fate that I witnessed from 3 members of my family. that 94.6% of people who start businesses experience on an annual basis. And an asset has three qualities to it. The first thing is, and think of it in terms of investing on a stock exchange. If you find a share and you buy a share for $100, what you hope for, three outcomes. The first is that $100 will turn into $200 when you sell the share 5 years from now. That's capital growth. The second thing is you hope to achieve dividends, a stream of dividends from the share. $10 a year, earning you $50 of dividends over the 5-year period. That's income growth. And most of us excel at generating income growth in our businesses. The third thing is the asset needs to be tradable. If you don't find a buyer for that share that you've acquired and you can't trade the share, you can never realize your capital growth, the capital value. The $100 capital gain, which for all of us acts as the final reward for the courage to start, the creativity to do things differently, and most valuably, the care to sustain that business over a 10, 20, 30, 40-year period of time. Passion will give us meaning, but our purpose has to be to build a business into an asset, and we call that an asset of value. It has 5 features to it. It's a business that has a distinct brand positioning. There are over 3 billion websites in the world. 3 billion websites in the world. There's not one industry, there's not one sector that isn't overtraded, that's becoming increasingly commoditized. How you distinguish yourself as a business and how you take that distinguished experience and translate it into brand is essential. It's the starting point of a growth system. From there, you want to govern that growth system. You want to govern your brand positioning through a system of delivery. All the functional aspects of a business, and every single one of us on screen has them. Marketing to generate leads, sales to convert them, operations to fulfill our promises, money management systems, people management system, procurement systems, administration systems. There are functions that every business has. I was taught that at university, but I was taught it as a concept. It wasn't taught to me as a functional requirement that in its own right needs to be optimized and, more importantly, integrated with the many other systems that I've described to you. We call that a system of delivery, and it's designed to deliver on the positioning. From there, we empower it and energize it with people. Those 3 elements release time for us to work with you to focus on growth. There are 2 types of growth I'll be sharing with you. And all of that adds up and stacks up to create the value that makes up the asset. So I'm going to take you on a journey in order to understand how we articulate this in our relationship and hopefully how we will emerge at the end of our relationship with this in play. Why doesn't it happen easily? Well, there are impediments to the building of an asset of value. If it was so easy, you'd simply study a course on business and then be challenging Elon Musk for the richest person in the world. And what we've noticed over time is that there are impediments across 3 domains. There's a leadership mindset impediment, an operational impediment, which is fundamentally practical, and then a future impediment. From a leadership point of view, by far, most business owners we speak to complain that there is not enough time to lead effectively. You are so busy doing and so busy involved in the day-to-day or month-to-month or week-to-week operational activities that there's no time to sit back, stand back, and think about what the next level of opportunity would look like. Secondly, the noise out there is reaching, it's not even reaching a crescendo. It is loud. It's impossible to understand the many, many factors changing the environment, the ongoing competition, the over-commoditization of almost everything. Resolving those two leadership issues is fundamental, because not being able to respond to a changing, noisy environment bleeds the momentum in the business, and it bleeds the faith that your team would have in your leadership. Operationally, there are three: increasingly finding, winning, and holding customers. Customers are being over-marketed and oversold. How do you distinguish yourself? How do you turn all the energy of marketing and sales into effectively new revenue? And then when you do, how do you grow without chaos? Because fulfilling obligations and promises becomes the second feature that then feeds into the first, holding your customers. Finally, how do you get the right people to do the right thing? It's been fascinating to watch. I follow quite actively the increasing trends in education, free education and paid for education. We're moving into a world, although one wouldn't think so, of an increasingly more and more educated population. And yet, there's not one business owner out there who bemoans their fate that they cannot get the right talent on board, and that should you sometimes in the quiet moments want something done properly, say to yourself, well, I should just do it myself. Finally, and these future problems are only really thought of or realized near the end of a journey. We spend 10, 15, 20, 30 years building a business, and we do a good job in generating income. We spend most of our lives fighting to get these operational requirements aligned and organized. We allow doubt to creep into our minds because of leadership issues. And then we spend between 30 to 80 hours exiting our businesses. And when we do, we suddenly realize that there were many, many growth opportunities we did not capitalize on. Because when you suddenly understand how a business is bought and realize that it's very different to how you build a business to generate income, it's largely too late at that point in time. So the issues of asset growth and the issues of creating an entity independently of yourself that can be traded and sold for a clean capital gain are mostly realized too late. We are going to remove all of these impediments. This is an issue of time. This here is an issue of system, and that's an issue of purpose. If the purpose is clear, and we're starting with the end in mind, and we're defining our businesses in terms of an asset of value, and we understand the 5 criterion that make it up, it immediately supports the thinking around valuation and the manner of exit. If we have a system of growth, we immediately resolve all these operational challenges, which are the single biggest issue eating our time. And if we have time to think and time to work from the bridge of a ship rather than in the engine room, we can respond to a changing environment. So let's get into the how. And I'm going to ask you to participate in 1 or 2 polls here. How do you do what you do? And what is the system of growth? And what are the benefits of a system? If you think about any system, it's really a set of principles, activities, policies, or procedures, the parts of which make up a whole, and that whole is a measured outcome that has a shape and value to it. So the way that you conduct heart surgery is driven by a system. The way that you fly an airplane is driven by a system. And yet the system that we are given to build a business are a series of loose concepts that in their own right we understand. Marketing we understand, sales we understand, operations we understand, but are profoundly difficult to optimize individually and then integrate into one single system that lets us as business owners orchestrate the development of our business and growth. Typically, businesses grow in 7 to 12-year cycles. And when we talk about leading growth, I'll share those cycles with you. But the asset of value system that we've eventually crystallized has two large components to it. In the first instance, we talk about positioning. How do you position your business in relation to your competition and to create distinction in the eyes and experience of your customers? Thereafter, how do you build a system of delivery to articulate that position and ensure that through the functions of the business, it gets done and delivered? And with that in mind, how do you build a purposeful team of people who are doing the right thing at the right time in the right place all the time? These three elements generate organic growth. They also generate the most precious commodity available to us all, time. And with that time, our jobs migrate from operating a business to leading it in terms of growth and innovation. The functions of growth are around managing scale, but accelerating growth beyond organic levels. The function of innovation is to reinvigorate the business, because you will see that we simply repeat this cycle through the 4 acts of leadership. This happens in the engine room of every business, and this happens on the bridge. And I'm going to unpack these in a little bit more detail. In the first instance, positioning from an asset of value perspective works fundamentally differently to what we were taught. We were taught and we were told that your product or service features are essential. And we were told this in 1772. It was first written down and concretized by Ralph Waldo Emerson, a founding father in the United States, who quoted, "If you build a better mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your door." And in 1772, he was absolutely right. There were very, very few products out there. And the notion that if we develop a good product, or if we build a good service, means that everyone will come to us. In today's over-commoditized environment, it's simply not the case. Absolutely, you need a good product. Absolutely, your service needs to be well designed, but it does not win the day for you. We were then told, and we were given evidence and proof of this, that price is a defining feature of success. And in 1922, Henry Ford, in establishing the assembly line, was quoted as saying, "You can have any Model T Ford you want, for so long as it is black." The assembly line, the production line, was developed to drop the price of a product. And it worked for a significant period of time, until in the late 60s, mid-60s to late 60s, Philip Kotler said, "You need a good product. You need to have a good price. But what's more important is you need to know who you serve." And he introduced this idea of marketing and established the advertising industry. He argued that all of us are broken up into segments. And for so long as you understand who your segment is, you know how to direct your marketing messages, which are largely centered around the features of your product and service and your price. So he built on what was formerly successful, but had in itself become commoditized. And folks, that's where it stopped. Over the last 7 years, we've noticed that those 3 elements are not good enough. Specifically, what we are seeing is that the businesses that are growing successfully, that are finding traction in a noisy, overcrowded, overcompeted, overserviced environment, are those that are saying, "I agree with serving a well-defined segment of clients, group of people, but I need to understand them differently. I mustn't understand them in terms of product or service features. I mustn't understand them in terms of price. And I mustn't understand them in terms of my service to them. Rather, I need to understand what problem they have that through my product or service, I can successfully solve. I need to understand them in terms of how that product comes into their lives, the cost of the problem not being solved, the cost of my product or service being lower than the cost of the problem they have on hand, so I can define a problem for them in terms of one solved for value. If the problem for me is $1,000 a year and your solution is $5,000, well, there's no value on that table. The problem is solved by the product and service, its features, its price. The second thing I need to understand is what experience do those individuals, be they businesses or consumers, want from me to learn about my service? What do they read? What do they listen to? Who are their influences? How do they become aware of their problem through the education I use in my marketing? How do they become aware of me when they realize they have a problem in a manner that builds trust and confidence? And when I sell to them, what's the experience they need in order to engage with me and convert from an inquiry into a customer or client? And then finally, when I fulfill my promise, what's the experience they wish to have in order to get satisfaction from that experience in the hope that they will tell the world? Positioning is all about understanding who you serve, defined in terms of a problem they have and an experience they want in order to have that problem resolved. It is the toughest piece to get right. All of us, when we started our businesses, said yes to everyone on anything, anywhere, and anyhow. Cash flow was the determinant. And over a period of time, tightening your positioning and developing a discipline and a strategy around saying, my expertise is in who I serve in relation to the problem and the experience that they wish to have that problem solved. It's not in relation to my ability to produce a great product or a constructed service. Businesses, if they're not customer-centric, become businesses that are product-centric, and those businesses generally tend to fail. In getting that right, the next piece is about building a system of delivery. And a system of delivery really focuses now on all the functional requirements. If we've gotten positioning right together, the clients that we choose to serve are telling us how they want to learn about us. So let's create a marketing system that matches their requirement and need. A system, incidentally, has 6 features to it. It's a set of activities organized into a sequence that give a measured outcome. If you can't measure, you can't manage. And a system, by definition, needs to have an outcome. The further 3 attributes, they're activities that can be taught and captured into a job description, essential for the people piece, and can be remunerated fairly. So if our clients are telling us how they want to learn about us, and we listen well and design a system of marketing made up of 1 or 2 or 3 campaigns that have a system of activities organized into a sequence to give a measured outcome, we can start to teach our teams how to market the business for us. In sales, selling is about creating activities in a sequence with a measured outcome. Those activities are designed to build trust, faith, and confidence in the inquiry from a client before they become a customer. It's a structured process of engagement. It has far less to do with your magnificent personality and charm and good looks. Thereafter, fulfillment, it is no different. If we see the functions of our businesses as individual gears, marketing, sales, operations, procurement, people management, money management, and we optimize each and every one of those individual systems, ensuring that they have the 6 elements baked and built into them. And thereafter, we integrate them to work as one. It's that enables us to develop the capacity to deliver reliably, consistently, and with confidence. I'd like to run a quick poll. I'd love to hear from you. Which cog do you think is the most troublesome cog that you experience in your particular business? Right now, as it stands today, is it about lead generation? Is it about conversion? Is it operations? Every time you get a deal on board, are you sucked back into the day-to-day crisis management of solving the delivery of that service? Is it about procurement and buying? Wow, operations suddenly shot up as I described it that way. There is nothing more frustrating than running around putting out fires. Procurement and buying. Look, procurement and buying has become a big issue, especially for commodity-driven businesses. The global supply chain shortages, and those will be resolved in the next year, year and a half, no doubt. 14 of you have voted out of 21, and consistently, the issue of operations and lead generation are right up at the top. And it really has remained that way. We'll talk to both of those once again in a short while. Once we have that in play, we understand how we're positioned. It's crisp, it's clean, it's clear. We've recognized that we can't be all things to all people, because every time we attempt to do that, we become nothing to anyone. And then we win our business based on price. And that's not a way to build an exitable business. So once we're crisp and clear on positioning, and we've done the work to build a system of delivery to articulate and govern that positioning, the next element is about getting our team on board. From an asset of value point of view, we've always argued that the way recruitment takes place is fundamentally flawed. The way that we empower our teams is largely chaotic. The way that we get the best bang for buck and real performance from our teams is constantly, seemingly an unsolvable challenge. So think of it from this point of view. If you have built a system of delivery that will give you that positioning and win you that positioning in a crowded, noisy marketplace, let's just remember that positioning is about understanding who you serve and giving them an experience to build their confidence and trust to engage with you, to feel heard and understood, and to be satisfied in how you solve a problem for them. And generally, clients like that, if the segmenting is done well, if you've understood who you serve, mix with very similar clients and make good testimonials and referrals in the light of that. So if we specialize, not in product, not in service, but in meeting those requirements for a well-defined group of clients, and we articulate that into a system of delivery, it puts us in a very, very special position where we can say, I'm not looking for a marketing manager. I'm not looking for a marketing assistant. I don't need an operations coordinator. What I'm looking for are system operators. We understand in terms of how we built the business, how to market the business to achieve our positioning. And we understand that because our clients told us. So what I want is someone who can come on board and operate the marketing system. A set of activities in a sequence that give a measured outcome that I can teach, contain in a job description, and remunerate accordingly. What it does immediately is it makes the entire process of recruitment far more efficient. Every time I look at a bunch of CVs that come across my table, and I look at all the incredible characteristics of the individual represented in the CV, I look at their history of work, I look at their skills, I think in my own mind, these individuals could have independently built the base station on Mars. Because one would think that what lies in the CV, you have been given a gift from the highest powers out there. Here is the white knight or silver bullet that will solve all the problems in your own business. It's incredibly hard to interpret a CV. So we suggest you don't. What's very easy to do, however, it's very easy to have a conversation with an incumbent employee and evaluate whether they have the aptitude or experience in performing the activities that make up the system you're employing them to operate. And once you've gotten that out the way, the next conversation is all about that individual in front of you. Who is their family? What matters to them in life? How do they engage with their friends? Because it's more valuable to employ people based on culture and values, knowing full well that they have the aptitude to operate the activities that make up the system, than trying to guess it the other way around. The second benefit, of course, is that when they come on board, because the system is well defined, and because one of the elements of a system is that the activities are teachable and supported with training material, you can very quickly capacitate that individual to perform. The third most valuable benefit, if across marketing, sales, operations, procurement, you have systems operating that are integrated and measured, the 25% of your time that you gave up to marketing and supporting the marketing effort reduces to 5% of your time looking at the measured outcomes of the campaigns that your marketing teams are running. 5% of the time looking at the measured outcomes of the sales systems that your sales teams are operating. 5% on fulfillment and operations. It is this formula, getting positioning right, building a set of systems to deliver on it, and empowering a team to operate the systems that releases you from the engine room and puts you on the bridge where 70% of your time should be focused on the next stage, which is all about growth. Let's pause for 1 minute here, because I have a lot of people contending with me that who wants to work in a business where you are seen to be a system operator? And what I can share with you is this. I certainly would. In fact, I do. I perform a set of systems in Aurik itself. And what I've noticed over time is that if you employ an individual who has the aptitude to perform and function well in a job that they have secured with you, because you've matched the activities to the individual's aptitude. And in the process of recruitment, you've asked enough questions and you've engaged sufficiently to have a sense of that person's values and culture. And you can see it fitting well within your broader team. When they come on board and immediately are empowered to start providing value and delivering on their promise to you as an employee, through that success, confidence builds. And when confidence builds, commitment builds. And with confidence and commitment working hand in hand, their sense of value and their sense of meaning and their sense of understanding of how they play a part in the greater whole which goes to one of the reasons why you exist out there, creates the most powerful thing you can hope for in any employee. And that is that through the work with you, they derive meaning. So I would debate and argue with anyone who says that a systems operator reduces someone to a mechanical instrument in the business. Absolutely not. We've noticed it consistently work in the opposite direction. There's nothing worse than joining a business unsure, uncertain as to what to do, when to do, how to do it, and then to be delayed in your ability to add value to that business. Nothing worse. So in this pause, what we have really effectively done is created a set of activities, positioning, a system of delivery, a purposeful team that should see you move from out of the engine room, hauling coal every day, onto the bridge. It's also a set of systems that will deliver for you organic growth. The 10, 15% of growth that you want annually, year in and year out. It is designed. It's not won. It's constructed. It's not hoped for. This is the way that you manufacture the time you need for next level growth. A quick question, a quick poll. How many of you are more in the engine room or more on the bridge? At the end of the period of us working together, no, six months into the period, 6 months, 8 months into our period of working together, we're hoping to shift the time more and more and more onto the bridge. Because from the bridge, you control the direction of the business. You ensure that you are working towards that end game, the asset of value. It's the only port you are sailing to. From the bridge, if you have the time, you know where you're sailing to, and the many, many multiple storms that you experience out there don't interfere with your strategy or objective. Rather, what it does is it gives you the perspective to see how to catch the current or how to catch the wind in your favor. Many businesses that I meet today saying, how do we set a strategy if there's so much uncertainty out there? It's because strategy in its own right, in our view, is misunderstood. Let's get rid of the word strategy. Let's call it purpose. If that purpose is unwavering, if it's an asset of value and it's well-defined and it's crisp and it's clear, the path getting there will shift and will change. Gosh, guys, we are in the engine room big time. I have an ask for you at the end of this session that will, I promise you, if we align on it and we commit to it jointly, we'll get you onto the bridge. So where are we now? We're in a position where our positioning is clear. We've built a system of delivery. We have a purposeful team operating well, and we have time on our hands. 70% of it within the next 6 to 9 months for all of us. What do we do with it? Our job at that point in time, as the single biggest investor in our own business, is to ramp up growth. We have organic growth already in play. We now need next level growth. We want growth that's going to exceed the 8, 10, 12, 15% organic growth that we have year on year. And it's our job to go and look for it. What's essential in an asset of value growth system, and something we will work ardently with you to achieve, is that that next level growth needs to be aligned automatically to your established positioning. It needs to interfere as little as possible with your system of delivery. And it needs to disrupt your team as little as possible. What you're looking for in next level growth is a new stream of revenue that you would be able to deliver on an established system that's already in play working in an organized, orchestrated manner. It means that when you bring in the new revenues, the incremental increases in your operating costs are small, and it creates a big yawn between the rate of revenue increase and the rate of profitability increase. It's essential in relation to the valuation formulas that succeed in an asset of value. New growth that you bring in that disturbs your positioning, that disrupts the system of delivery and creates chaos in your team, with all the hard-won work you have put in play to be on the bridge, will simply see you spinning down the spiral staircase back from the bridge into the engine room. Next level growth is a strategic intervention, and it's built on the platform of the first 3 steps that make up the asset of value growth system. You're either going to find it by bringing in a new market, so marketing into a new region, but meeting and finding the same segment that you have positioned your business to engage with. You might add a product that the same segment wishes to enjoy as a further benefit of service or value from you. Or you might move into a completely new segment altogether. But that segment in its own right needs to have the same type of problem and desire the same type of experience in having that problem solved. They're the 3 levers of next level growth. And it should be evident now that understanding which one is most beneficial to your asset of value is impossible unless you have the time to do the thinking, investigation, and then to support the decision you've made as a result. Once that element's in play, the last element of the asset of value growth system is all about innovation. And innovation essentially means reinvigoration. It's not reinventing your business, because where is the seed of all future innovation for you? You either find it internally in terms of how to create a far more efficient business, but if you have purposeful people where you've managed to delegate responsibility because you have got system operators and they themselves are performing well within the system sets that they're responsible for, they themselves will generate the innovation to improve processes, to improve systems, to make those many, many, many small tweaks that add up to be a great advantage to the business itself. Real innovation for you should see you move right back to the beginning of this growth system again. You will find the answer with the clients that you serve. Because building this out in a 7 to 12 year period means that the world has changed, circumstances have changed, and therefore the lived reality of customers and clients that you serve has changed too. Innovation is about going back to your customers and clients and confirming what's changed in their status quo from when you first engaged 7, 12 years previously. This here creates a very structured system of growth. It's logical, it's organized, it's sequential. If this becomes the mantra in terms of how you establish a growth system in your business, your team equally becomes familiar with it too. And you will notice as we move on to the next piece of when do you do what you need to do for next level growth. This is a system that simply repeats itself through 4 cycles. So with that in play, we now have a crisp definition of why we're doing what we're doing. It's to build an asset of value. How do we do it? By embarking and adopting and integrating the asset of value growth system. We start with positioning. We establish a set of system of delivery. We have purposeful people operating our systems. We've led the growth. And we've innovated by reinvigorating our positioning, making tweaks in the second stage of growth to the system of delivery, making tweaks to our team to find that next level thereafter. From $5 million to $50 million in 14 years. I'm going to tell you a story to bring this next piece to life. And it's a story of a very, very grumpy baker. I met the baker about 14 years ago. 54 years of age, he had started the business at the age of 29. Prior to that, he'd worked in some corporate bakeries. Prior to that, he had the benefit of education behind him. And he had been born into a family, a heritage of baking. His great-grandfather was a baker in France. The great-grandfather stole the IP of the bakery that he had worked in, and the IP was the croissant recipe. He had built a small bakery himself. His son had joined that bakery, and they had decided in the mid-1800s, whenever it was, to immigrate from France, French Huguenots. So the son arrived with capability and skill. He became an entrepreneur. He established a bakery. His son, our client's father, joined that bakery and took over the family business. And this individual, Jack, decided he was going to follow suit. 4 generations of baking. His father sold the bakery, and that led to him having to join corporate with the view to then establish his own business. 25 years in, he was sitting with an annual turnover of $4.7 million. Not bad for a bakery, especially not bad for a bakery in an environment where there are an estimated 5,400 and something odd bakeries out there, an extremely competitive, contended space. Growth had brought chaos. Chaos killed and seeped out his passion, his love for what he did, and he wanted to sell the business. For 2 years, he had it on the market. He could not fetch a price even remotely close, never mind to what he wanted, but to what he needed for himself and his family to live reasonably well. That's when he came to see us. We had a very tempestuous relationship. He was a grumpy human being, incredibly bright, big, strong, hardworking. He fundamentally believed that hard work is good work, as a baker would. It's a very physical act. He built a business that had generated successful income for him, put his kids through private schooling, paid off his home. Ostensibly, he'd done well. But he was sitting with an almost $5 million a year business that he could not offload. We then embarked on a process of simplifying his positioning. That in itself was traumatic. He felt deeply attached to all the clients that he had been serving at the time. We developed a system of delivery that allowed him to delegate management of the system of delivery. Delegation. Key challenge in getting that right. If it's a system operator and the system's built, delegation becomes a cinch. And then we focused on 4 stages of next level growth. It's a business that in 14 years grew to $48.4 million worth of revenue. December, the year before last, it closed at almost $50 million of revenue. And he'd managed to achieve this in a 14-year period. 25 years to get to $5 million, 14 years to get to 10 times that value. At the same time, he'd increased his EBITDAs by 11.6%. This is a story I'm going to share with you. When do you do what you do? It is so hard to know as a business owner how to lead the business through stages and phases of growth. It's especially impossible to achieve if you're spending all your time doing rather than leading. It's almost impossible if you don't have a well-defined concept of what the purpose behind your effort is, an asset of value. The frustration of running a business like that will make you respond in a knee-jerk reaction way to whether it be COVID, whether it be Brexit, whether it be the currency, whether it be power supply, whether it be socio-political unrest. You're going to become a responder to change rather than leader of change. Because when you're working with a high state of emotion, worn down to the bone, hauling coal in an engine room, without the ability to identify sight and direction in the business itself, how do you lead? You can't. That's called micromanaging, and that builds us a job alone. And that's where Jack the Baker was. He got from start to just under $5 million in 25 years, a journey that should be achieved more or less between 7 and 12 years if a system of growth is applied. That first stage of leadership in your business is to establish your foundation. It's to get to a point where you have built a system that delivers you that organic growth, reliably, consistently, and only occupying 30% of your time. Because once that stage of leadership has been achieved in your business, the next act is about dominating your segment. Think of the logic of this. If you have structured your business to solve a very well-defined set of problems through an exceptionally well-defined experience for an even a crisp definition of who your client or customer is. It means you understand them, not only in terms of demographics, but you understand their psychology. You understand how their brains think, how their emotions flow. You understand their buying processes. What was fascinating in this particular story is when I met Jack, he was extensively selling fresh baked goods into the hotel sector. Who buys the continental breakfast in the hotel sector? The food and beverage manager. That's their functional position. That's their job. Every baker sells to the food and beverage manager. During the first engagement with Jack, we then learned and understood that if he was going to be an expert at serving the hotel group sector, he had to understand the problem differently. It was less to do with the beautiful, crisp, delicious croissant, and it was more to do with the fact that the food and beverage manager required a quality product, and he or she made up 25% of the purchase decision. Prior to our engagement with Jack, that individual received 100% of Jack's marketing and sales effort. We learned within the hotel group sector, as we established the foundation with him, that the finance manager plays a role too, that procurement is obsessed with occupational safety and health, that the human resource manager in the hotel groups wanted to only onboard suppliers that required minimal training of their own staff. And when Jack had fundamentally realized that that was the experience hotel group sectors required in having a problem of fresh baked continental breakfasts being onboarded and served every morning through their multiple locations, it was the shift that allowed him to say no to everything outside of the hotel group sector, define the problem he solves in crisp, clear terms, and build the system of delivery to articulate and achieve that. It was that that allowed him to get his team focused on operating the systems. And it was that that gave him traction in the hotel group sector, releasing his time to then dominate right across all hotel group sectors. He was no longer selling on the basis of a 4-generation heritage croissant recipe, the best product out there, superb, exclusive quality. He was selling into the buying behavior that supported awareness, engagement, confidence, and trust right across the hotel group sector. And the second act that we went through with Jack was taking 70% of the time that he and his management team had released by establishing their foundation first and directing it to massively increase marketing and selling activities. Once he had gotten to a point where he was dominating in his market segment, we then moved to the third act of next level growth, which is where we started to look for new channels and acquisitions. Moving from the hotel group sector, Jack identified the supermarket sector that had problems very similar to that in the hotel group. They required every day, 365 days of the year, fresh baked goods on their shelves in order to capture the breakfast trade. They did not want to do it themselves, similar to the hotel group sector, because in doing it themselves, it meant that they had to employ more people, carry a kitchen or baking kitchen in order to deliver it, requiring an investment in capital equipment and goods, which took up valuable retail space, where merchandising increases the yield on every basket sold. What was essential in the accelerated growth was that Jack had found a completely new segment that had the same positioning requirement, would run the same system of delivery he had built in his foundation, and could be operated by the same team. It led to a completely new stream of revenue coming into the business with a marginal increase in his operating overhead. And that's taken us to the fourth stage of work that we have done with Jack, to deepen his EBITDA. He brought on the fast food or franchise segment next, a third stream of revenue on the same operating overhead, yielding a massive yawn between his revenue growth rate, matched and married by his EBITDA growth rates. It's this that's positioned him for exit. And my gosh, I wish he would. He's one of the most impossible people I've ever worked with. He's now in his late 70s. Succession has taken place with his sons having come into the business, and there is no end in sight. So what did we do with him? Well, we ran the asset to value growth system. And as we ran through our first 24 months here with Jack, in order to stabilize his 300 months of effort that it took for him to get to $5 million, in a 24-month period, we stabilized that environment, largely getting the positioning right, the system of delivery right, and getting his team on board. And with the time that he had released, Jack brought us on board for a further 24 months, about 3 years after this first intervention. And in that second intervention, we worked with them to reposition the business, rebuild and support the system of delivery, and engage his team to get his team able and capable with the massively increased marketing and selling activities that he had undertaken. Over a period of about 3 years, 4 years, this was his dominant play. We then worked with him to get to the next stage, which was accelerated growth. And it was during this phase over here that we worked with him and his team for a short period of 24 months to effectively understand the positioning within the new supermarket segment, make some adjustments to the system of delivery, and ensure his team were properly on board. And then with the final act, 4 interventions over 14 years, of 2 years each, we had a short period of time working with him to deepen his EBITDA. 4 acts of leadership, which is our fundamental responsibility as owners of the business, to establish a foundation, dominate the segment, massively accelerate growth. And then as you move towards exiting your business, stretch out the EBITDA numbers to support a successful exit. I have 3 asks of you, and then I'm going to end and open the floor for questions and engagement. My first ask, please have faith and one mind around an asset of value. I'm the first to admit that in the growth system we've configured for you and your business, it's made up of many, many parts, the whole of which create an asset of value. Our work with you is structural. It doesn't deal with the day-to-day operational responsibilities that all of you are long suffering under. Because if we create a system, it's that releases you from those day-to-day activities. We're creating a system of swimming rather than treading the water with you. And over time, if you implement and bring your team along, you have my undertaking that you will spend less and less time in the engine room and more time on the bridge. And then finally, you have my absolute undertaking that if you're diligent with the dashboard that we have customized around your business, the algorithms that we have created in the dashboard are all built on the back of the 350, 400 odd company valuations that I was under the whip to mark, that we have a deep and profound understanding of. Because if the intention is to start with the end in mind, it's that data that when you're on the bridge, lets you navigate most effectively to get to the end destination. And those algorithms will give you indications of when you need to move from one act of leadership to the next act of leadership, to the next, and then to the final act. That data that sits on the dashboard will be your strongest body of evidence to support a valuation and clean exit, which is something ultimately all of us wish to work towards. For it's that clean exit at a premium price that caters to all the risk and investment you have suffered over a 10, 20, 30-year journey to the benefit of your family, and that creates a next legacy of wealth within your family environment. With that, I'd like to end off and open the floor to if there are any questions. Just a few statements. The job is to build a system that makes the business happen. It's not to make the business happen. Your purpose is to lead the business through those structured 4 engagements. And the success, it will be an asset of value. So with that, I'm going to stop talking, and I would welcome any questions and engagement. And to make it real and to make it rich, I'm going to stop sharing too.
Hi, can I ask
Pippa, thank you. Sorry. I just noticed. Pippa, thank you very much for putting up that piece by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Guys, he's a lot more than just a dumb Terminator. He really is quite a remarkable human being. I would implore you or encourage you to copy that address and in your own time, get your inspiration from that. Sorry, I interrupted you.
May I ask a question?
Please, Jenny.
Yeah, Pavlo, thanks very much. It was very interesting, and I'm really looking forward to walking this journey with you. You said that about 94%, I think, of businesses struggle to sell, particularly below 200 million per annum range, because they're often family business, I think, and the owner's too much involved in the business itself. Have you measured the businesses that you've worked with for your whole program? Have you been able to reduce or improve on that number? You know, in other words, have your customers been able to sell, and have you measured that?
So it's 94.6%. I'm very particular about the stat because it took a year of data slicing and dicing, and it was an incredibly painful process. So we have a bit of a problem with our clients. About 50% of our clients come to us with a view to build a business that can be sold. And that means that around 50% of our clients are in their late 40s upward. When you look at the real reason why people want to sell, in many instances, it's because they've been worn to the bone. When you spend a life building a business, much like my father did and two uncles did, where you are the business, you are the source of the business, you are the proximate cause around the revenues and the business itself, your energy gets depleted, you get worn to the bone, you lose your passion, you lose your enthusiasm. And at the end of the 24-month period, what we have found is that in most cases, by far the majority, those clients who came to us with the view to build a business that could be sold at the end of the 24 months have opted to remain on. Jack the Baker is a classical example. 14 years ago, I came to you, Pavlo, because I heard that you can get deals done on businesses. Okay, Jack, do you agree we have to build the business to be sold? Because a business is not bought, it's built to be sold. And after 6 months of negotiation with Jack, he accepted that. He subsequently, sadly, has passed on. And the succession that we did over there was with his family. At first, he didn't want to have his family in the business because he didn't want his kids, who were all adults, to go through what he was going through and to live the life that he was living. But when you get into a position where a business in its own right massively increases its profitability, is being operated by systems to cater to the daily, weekly, monthly activities that operations demand of you, and puts you in a position where you can do your true purpose and job, which is to grow it into a wealth-generating asset. It drew on all the creativity and excitement of the baking sector and what the baking sector could solve for Jack. So he opted not to sell, even though I brought him 2 acquirers, and his sons have opted not to sell. They're trading now across Africa, across China, across the Middle East, and the intention is for them to take it to $100 million a year. So I wish I could say yes, but it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. What's interesting at the moment is that we're being approached extensively by corporate entities. And this is occurring both in the UK, it's occurring in the US, where we have a recent presence as well. It's occurring in South Africa too. And if I listen carefully to what the approaches are all about, effectively with all the uncertainty out there, corporate entities are struggling to find real growth. And if you think about what a corporate does, a very, very large business's role, its job is to create extensive muscle-driven distribution. The job of innovating, the job of developing new markets through new segments, the job of fast growth, the job of growing profit, really is only available to actively managed mid-tier businesses like ours. And their arguments to us are as follows. In the context of South Africa, they're arguing, well, there is no growth in the South African environment. Given that, we foresee that our growth is going to come through acquiring mid-tier, fast-growing businesses. So I foresee a lot of mergers and acquisitions, or acquisitions taking place between corporate entities and mid-tier businesses in the next 3 to 5 years. In the UK, we've already been approached by a number of the relationships I have there, where people are saying, with all the uncertainty of COVID, then Brexit, and the fundamental changes that will come through in climate legislation enforced upon us by both the United States and Europe, which are two of our larger trading partners, we think that growth is going to be impeded, and we're going to be looking to make acquisitions that would be able to support entry into new niches or whatever the case might be. So I think we're going to move over the next 5 years into a world with an enormous amount of acquisitive behavior coming from the big listed entities.
Okay, thank you. So you do your job too well and everyone gets inspired to keep their business.
Yeah, and you know what? The part that's so frustrating is the deal that I did with Jack, because it was right in our early stages. So firstly, I'm very, very excited about the fact that we've been through 4 cycles with him. You know, over 14 years, we've occupied 8 of those years with him. But when I first met him, it was at the early stages of Aurik. We agreed that I would get the business sold for him. And he said, Pavlo, I'll give you 2% if you get the business sold. Now that business sitting at $50 million has a nice, big, healthy chunk of activity behind it. And that's why I brought the buyers to the table. And he's saying, well, he passed 3 years ago, but his sons are now saying, no, hang on a minute. We got it to 50, let's get it to 100, and then let's have the discussion again. But it's a wonderful place to be, because it really, it's all about legacy. And if you can put yourself in a position where you're leading growth, as opposed to wondering how to make it manifest, a system gives you control and it gives you perspective.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Any other questions from anyone? Not. Okay, then with that, I'm going to end off. Thank you so much for giving up time. Thank you so much for traveling a journey with us and being part of Aurik. And we really, really appreciate working with you. We take on 1 in 12 businesses. The nature of our relationship is a partnership, and we remain committed to it. I need 2 things. I need you to grow. I need you to grow, because our reputation and our stats are premised on it. We work very hard to maintain that 28.9% and 32.4% EBITDA growth rates. So we pick with a tremendous amount of care. We've taken risk with many of you, and we've done so because we fundamentally believe in you. We are clear and we are certain that in what we do and how we do it, if it's implemented and if it's adopted across your teams so that you don't land up doing all the heavy lifting, it will yield the growth outcomes that we would have expected when we first engaged with each other. I cannot stress enough, to the extent that you can bring your team with you, the benefits for you are as follows. If you're building out, for example, a sales system, and you have your sales team with you, their voice is heard. And seeing that they're at the coalface every day in the selling process, their voice being heard means that the system that gets established is one that's co-created by them. To the extent that it's co-created by them, as a co-creator, you then take accountability for that system to be implemented. You take accountability for the measured outcomes. And to the extent that that happens, it means that we don't, in isolation with you, build a system that you then have to go and train your team to operate. We kill 3 birds with 1 stone if you bring your team on board. the appropriate team for the appropriate system set. I beg you to do it. I implore you to do it. I promise you a massive, massive benefit from doing it. We've worked with over 2,700 businesses. Those that succeed remain absolutely resolute on one destination, which is asset of value. In the development of the system of delivery, they bring their teams on board. They then utilize the dashboard to manage performance of the team, because every system gets 3 to 4 measured outcomes on the dashboard. And that puts you in a position where I can turn around and say, Jack, you're in marketing, there are 3 measured outcomes over there. You built the system alongside with us. I'm logging into the dashboard once a month to make sure that you've hit those targets. It's an enormously powerful place to be. Please do it so we can all win together. And with that, I thank you very much for your time. It's lovely to see you face to face, and we will see each other in the next round. Take care, folks.
Thanks. Bye.